Hey y'all, welcome to my podcast episode today. I'm about to hit the record button on my phone, but I did just want to get on here really quickly in my live session just to disclaim a couple things. So I know everyone's, at home right now um, due to all of this virus stuff going on. So um, I'm also, of course, obviously in that same situation. So if you happen to hear people talking in the background or dogs barking, I'll try to like maybe pause if something like that happens. So if I pause at a random time, it's probably because I can hear something go on, but hopefully none of that will happen in the background today. So if you're watching this in the future and not live, I apologize if you hear random things in the future. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead, open up my notes here really quick, and then I'm just going to be talking. I'm just going to be talking to the screen basically, like y'all have seen in the past. So I'll go ahead, pull up my notes, and then um, we'll go ahead and jump into my podcast episode live here. Hey y'all, my name is Briley Casanova, and I am a mental performance coach. I help athletes reach their full potential while working through mental challenges within their sport. For example, I help athletes learn how to perform better under pressure, whether that's learning how to see competition differently with mindset shifts or learning relaxation or energy management techniques. I also help with goal setting, leadership, maintaining focus, and overcoming fear. My goal is to help others find their inner confidence and self trust, which hopefully leads to further success and joy in their sport. Let's get started with today's episode. So, today, here we are with Pep Talk number 6 already. I can't believe it. And today I wanted to talk about the number one skill that I wish I learned in my athletic career and a little bit more. So, this episode topic was actually suggested to me by a friend and I would say colleague of mine. Her name is Danielle Delicio. She has her own mental performance consulting business as well. It's called Infinity Performance, I believe. So make sure go shout out to Danielle over on her page. Go say hi, tell her I sent you, because I owe her all the credit today for our topic. So thank you to Danielle for supplying me with today's content in that regard. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. So, really, the number one skill that I wish I learned in my athletic career is this. So, as I was thinking about this, I had to really think back and reflect on my past and my gymnastics career that ended in 2016, and I had to go back and think of all the years of all the lessons I've learned, and maybe the one that I wish I had applied and learned more was to, at the end of the day, just be kinder to myself and embrace compliments when they were given. That was something that I actually really struggled with. So generally, I took criticism very hard and very personally, only because I think a lot of my identity was wrapped up in being a gymnast. So I wish I had found a way to be more confident in myself, because looking back, gymnastics was one of the few things that I was good at. And, I think I should have just been more proud of myself and actually given myself more credit for how good I was. And I don't say that to be conceited or, high and mighty or anything. That's just the reality of, I guess what I've learned since that time. So, that also came to when other people were, genuinely kind and actually showed me support. Um, I didn't necessarily believe people when they told me good things about myself or talked about, my skill level to me or even maybe about me. Um, Really, no matter if I was being complimented or ridiculed, I constantly saw myself as not good enough and just not worthy of the good things that came along, which is really sad to think about. So, um, at the end of the day, I guess I wish I had learned to truly accept my gifts and success, because I really worked really hard for it. Being a gymnast was my life. So I had really truly dedicated so much of my time, effort, energy, identity, and just overall my entire self to the sport. So, like I said, I wish I had kind of learned to accept my gifts and my talent, because I did have talent, but I also worked really, really hard to maintain that, because, like everyone says, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, talent is lazy. Talent, um, it is something that some people happen to be born with, and it's, I think it's a God-given gift because not everyone does have natural raw abilities for everything, but hard work can, of course, supplements that, and you have to have hard work to allow your talent to come to life in full fruition. So I guess with that being said, despite the things that were not pleasant, I ended up being my own harshest critic, but only because I let other people get into my head. And that was a weakness of mine that looking back, I had an issue with too. I had, whether it was, just random people watching the gymnastics meet, or other parents, or other coaches, or other teammates, or other competitors, rivals, you name it. I let the comments that I would hear, the negative ones, really, I let the negative stuff get in my head, which was really, you know, at the looking back, it's like I've learned so much since then because I realize and I know that that's totally in my control. Whether or not I let other people get into my head, and I really did. So unfortunately, I it took me so long. I would venture to say even after my career was over, to learn that I have control over how I interpret negative feedback from other people, whether it's given to me in a constructive way or given to me in a very emotional, just negative way in general. So, um, I don't know. Thinking back, that's really what I noticed to be one of my biggest issues. So, um, like I said, I was always just so hard on myself out of caring so much about how I did gymnastics and how I competed and how I practiced and trained. So, learning to be kinder and less of a perfectionist would have actually led me to more confidence and a higher self esteem, I think. And that's just my opinion. Of course, I've had to go back and look back at like 20 years of, something I dedicated my life to and how, invested I was to come to that point, of realization and that lesson. So, truly enjoying my sport and allowing myself to have more fun would have been really beneficial for my career too. So if there's anything um, that I could also say today, I hope that that's something that you can take away from what I've learned today if you're listening. I hope you can learn to have more fun and actually maybe learn to be less of a perfectionist and pursue excellence instead. And I know I've said that before. I know I try to always bring back each episode to the title of why, the title of this podcast and what I want it to be about. I encourage others to pursue excellence over perfection. And I say that because I wish that's something that I did, and it's not something that I would call a regret, but it's just a lesson that I've learned. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that that's relatable to someone out there. I hope, someone can take away that lesson from my perspective. So I have a couple more things to say here, but that's just a little bit of a tangent I did want to go on for a moment. But anyway, I unfortunately allowed negative people in my head too much. So I wish I just found a better way to cope with that. And I also think that I could have applied that to advocating for myself more when it came to like injuries, I guess specifically. That's the best example I think that I can come up with, and probably the most relatable example. So I had the habit of being afraid to tell, my coaches and parents when something really hurt. And I let it get to the point of where I would be in so much pain where like I would just wake up one day and not really be able to fully function in the gym. I think like the most vivid memory I have of that is with my wrist injury. And I've talked about this a little bit in the past on some other PEP Talk episodes, but I had a wrist break in, what year was it? I think 2008 or 2009. So I think I was 15 at the time. And I just remember, like, I don't remember hurting it in one moment. It was kind of like an over time, like the pain built up, and I would still keep training on it and training on it and, you know, competing even. I got to a point where I competed on it at least once, if not twice, just knowing that, like, this is something more than just like a strain or a sprain. Like, it ended up being a broken wrist. So anyway, my point is I just remember I would get to a point where I would hurt so bad, and then one day I like wouldn't be able to like put my wrist guard on or put my grip on, and I wouldn't be able to hang onto the bar. So you can imagine as a gymnast, like going from like, you're struggling so hard and you're keeping it together until one day you just can't do it anymore, really. So um I encourage you, with that being said, I encourage you, if you're listening to this and you have a similar mindset when it comes to injury, like it's one thing to work through soreness and, achiness, like in terms of, maybe you conditioned really hard or you're trying to get stronger. That's one thing. But when it comes to like injury, and if you know something's wrong, then I encourage you to, bring that up or sooner rather than later, because I would hate, for you to, suffer more than you have to. I mean, really, I don't think sports are about complete suffering like that. And that's just my perspective too. I know sports are meant to make you stronger and better and more resilient and tougher. And that's, of course, that's part of it. You have to basically know your limit. And I think that's really my point with that is, um, you have to know when it's time to say, hey, I'm really hurting. Like, there's something seriously wrong. Like, I need to go to the doctor, or I need to go to someone. Like, I need to get evaluated, diagnosed with something because, like, something's just not right. And I'm going to continue to, suffer. And I would hate for that to happen to someone. So that's another thing that I've learned with all of that as well, like that specific experience. So, moral of the story, if I had spoken up earlier when things hurt me, even if the initial reaction was like anger or disappointment from whoever I told, whether that's, a parent or a coach or like a trusted adult, I could at least have caught injuries earlier and not have suffered as severely or for as long of a time period than I ended up hurting for. And so I hope that someone out there can take that message away as well. I hope that sharing that with any athletes listening reinforces the need for better communication between coaches, parents, and athletes. Like it's a triangle of communication that needs to be smooth. So, um, of course, coaches and parents aren't mind readers, and neither are athletes. So, for whether you're an athlete, a coach, or a parent listening, it's important that everyone is able to communicate better with each other in the pursuit of keeping not only a healthy relationship, but this is also in the pursuit of protecting the athlete's mental and physical health. So that's like the largest point I really wanted to get across with today's episode. So just a little bit of a bonus. Hopefully that all of that kind of was packaged neatly in the first 10 minutes of this episode here, but just a little bit of a bonus note that I have here that I made. Um, Learning to not fully identify as a gymnast was also something that I could have learned earlier on too, and um, but I've gotten better at that as time has gone on. So I think when you have no choice but to move on from a short term sport such as gymnastics, it's really allowed me to discover like who I am now and who I'm meant to be, moving forward. I've learned a great deal after my athletic career, just as much as I've learned during it. So, transitioning here into my final thoughts. During my gymnastics career, trusting my instincts and speaking up for myself when it came to injuries or disagreements was another skill that I could have learned and used more. So that's really the moral and the main point of today's episode that I wanted to talk about. I had a really hard time advocating for myself when it came to things that hurt me physically or sometimes emotionally, and I can go deeper into that in future episodes. I plan on it, in fact. But anyway, it took me until after my career ended to realize that there were times I should have advocated for myself stronger and spoken up about how I was maybe truly feeling at the time and what I needed to feel supported at the time. And it's really hard to do as a young kid or a teenager. So I know that for my younger audience listening, I know that this sounds really hard, but it's just something that I encourage you to, challenge yourself with maybe, and maybe push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone and take that risk. I think this is a risk worth taking because, betting on yourself, there's no better thing to invest in is yourself. So, I hope that talking about these things today helps athletes out there learn something about themselves. My message to the athletes currently training is to leave no stone unturned and get creative with your training. Learn as much as you can about yourself to become the master of your own career. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself because you know yourself better than anyone else in the entire world. be your own best friend, treat yourself kindly, and take your training seriously by being your strongest support system and advocate. Pursue excellence in your own way and train each day with the intention of having no regrets. So that's the main points I wanted to talk about today, and I know that that's very personal from my experience, but hopefully those of y'all listening can, plug in your own sport or your own experience and, translate it over and apply it to you. Make this knowledge your own, make your experience your own. So with all of that, I'm just going to close out here by saying thank you so much for listening. Please check out my social media platforms. You can find me on patreon.com/BrileyCasanova for exclusive updates and the chance to give me feedback on future episodes. You can find me on Instagram at Mental Coach Briley. You can find me on Twitter at Mental Coach Bry. I recently also started a public Facebook group. It's fb.me/Mental Coach Briley. And you can also reach me in a more private setting on email. My email is briley@completeperformancecoaching.com. Once again, that's briley@completeperformancecoaching.com. And if you feel inclined to donate to me or my business, I would really appreciate it. You can do that on Venmo, and my username is just Briley Casanova. All one word, no space. And feel free to reach out with questions and feedback you have. Your input is valuable and important to me, so please help please help me contribute to my growth and knowledge. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in my next episode. Okay. All right, so my recording for the pep talk is over, but I'm still here live. If I see any questions that came up, I'll go ahead and answer those, and if there isn't any, that's totally okay. Let me just double check here. Doesn't look like I have any questions, so I'll go ahead and close out. And if you're watching this live, thank you so much. If you're watching this in the future, thank you so much. I will be posting this to YouTube, and I will be leaving it up on my Facebook page as well. So feel free to comment questions you have, feedback. I'm really open and appreciative of any and all feedback that you can provide me. I just appreciate any interaction, any support. It means a lot to me. So you guys know where to find me with all of my other social media accounts and stuff too. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and end it here since I don't see any other questions. But thanks again, and you'll see me again soon. Bye, guys.